Incredible twist, young billionaire discovers his hidden daughters after buying abandoned twins. Jack Thompson stood in the cavernous space of the old warehouse, dust motes dancing in the flickering light from his phone. A bold investment decision meant to create a tech innovation hub took a turn he never anticipated. His heart raced, not with excitement, but with unease as hollow echoes of his own ambitions pressed down on him. He had chased success relentlessly in the tech startup world, prioritizing profits over people. Now, confronted with an unexpected twist of fate, he felt the weight of his choices bear down, twisting his gut with a mix of dread and responsibility. The shadows shifted, revealing the source of his torment: two frightened 6-year-old twins, their small frames huddled together. Their wide eyes reflected confusion and something deeper, a bond forged from shared abandonment. "Who left you here?" Jack found himself asking, though he didn't expect an answer. They looked at him, their silent gaze demanding something he had never prepared for. A dilemma loomed in front of him: how to merge the cutthroat world of his business with the stark reality of unintended fatherhood. Was he capable of stepping into a role he never envisioned? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Inside his meticulously curated life of meetings and deals, the unknown nature of fatherhood sent his mind into a whirlpool of racing thoughts. As he settled the girls into his sleek, upscale apartment, uncertainty gnawed at him. Was wealth a curse? His mind looped back to his father's values: integrity, family. Words that felt distant now, drowned out by the sirens of success. The twins needed him, and in return, they challenged everything he had built his life on. What kind of man was he if he couldn't protect them? The reality blurred. Late nights spent negotiating contracts melded with early morning playdates filled with laughter that suddenly rang hollow. Jack was losing a sense of control. The whispers of his wealth echoed, reminding him of societal prejudices that questioned his capability as a single father. Could he juggle board meetings while being a father? He felt as if he was two people, the ambitious billionaire and this reluctant caretaker, forced into a world where each choice carried weight. Tension mounted when he discovered a crumpled letter hidden in the twins' backpack, a faint connection to a mother he desperately wanted to confront yet feared would disrupt the fragile bond he had begun to forge. Could those words hold answers or further complicate their fractured lives? Jack found himself deep in a personal ambivalence, longing to shield the girls from pain, yet driven to seek the truth about their past. As the letter lingered in his thoughts, the internal struggle intensified. Protect his daughters or uncover the muddy waters of their history? Each passing moment felt like a decision in a high-stakes game, and he was painfully aware that this time, failure would not just be about business. His identity hung in the balance: billionaire or father? He stood on the precipice of a choice that could alter everything. The stakes had never been so high. Jack's fingers brushed against the edges of the crumpled letter as he sat on the edge of his pristine couch, the weight of it a stark contrast to the sterile environment he had created in his life. The polished glass and chrome around him felt foreign amidst the emotional turmoil churning within. The air crackled as if the walls sensed his internal discord, blurring the distinction between his old life and the new one unexpectedly thrust upon him. For the first time, Jack hesitated. Where he had once made decisions in boardrooms with the calculated precision of a shrewd businessman, now he found himself drowning in uncertainty. What if the letter revealed a truth he wasn't ready to face? He could dismiss it, but wouldn't that be abandoning the girls again, like the mother who had left them? This dilemma worked its way deep into his psyche, forcing him to confront aspects of his character he had long buried beneath layers of ambition and financial success. The laughter of the twins echoed softly from the playroom, punctuated by the clattering of blocks and squeals of delight. Their joy felt like an anchor, pulling him away from the storm inside his mind. He had underestimated their impact. His life had shifted from one of transactional interactions to an emotional tapestry woven from the threads of fear and hope. In this new world, the black and white decisions of the past felt unbearably simplistic. He glanced at the letter again. Perhaps it contained an explanation, a breadcrumb leading to the choices she made, decisions that could illuminate the stark gray areas of their lives. If he wanted to be the father they needed, he would have to confront this shadow of their past. But the thought of facing someone who had forsaken the girls sparked a fury he hadn't anticipated. He could pursue truth or continue this fragile illusion of safety, but at what cost? With a deep breath, Jack stood and moved toward the playroom. The chaos within him gave way to a determination that felt unfamiliar yet invigorating. As he knelt beside them, offering the twins his full attention, he realized that understanding their history was no longer just an abstract notion, it was an obligation. He needed to be a protector, a guide not only through the reality of their current situation but also through the fog of their shared past. His resolve crystallized as he listened to the twins' chatter, their innocent voices pulling him into the present. "Daddy, can we make a castle?" One of them piped up, eyes gleaming with youthful zeal. A surge of warmth spread through him, momentarily drowning out his fears. They needed him to be present, to engage with them not just as a figure of authority but as their father. Decisions would have to be made, including tackling the envelope's contents head-on. But for this moment, he allowed himself to simply be. Here, surrounded by laughter and simple joys, he felt the contours of his identity begin to shift. He could be both Jack Thompson, the tech mogul, and Jack, their father, forging a new path. As the castle rose before them, a chaotic but glorious community of blocks, he understood this endeavor symbolized far more than a tower built of plastic. It was emblematic of his journey, messy, unexpected, yet full of potential. The letter's truth awaited him, but first, he would need to ground himself in their reality. As the day waned and shadows crept into the corners of the room, the time arrived for Jack to untangle the letters of lives left behind, facing whatever ghosts lurked in the words. With the twins tucked safely in bed, he reached once more for the letter, heart pounding with expectation. The moment of truth was at hand, and Jack felt the tension in his chest. Was he ready to uncover what lay beneath? The moonlight filtered through the sheer curtains, illuminating the letter as Jack sat at his dining table. Shadows danced around him, mirroring the tumult he felt inside. He unfolded the letter slowly, each creak of the paper a reminder of the truths embedded within. Jack's hands trembled slightly, not solely from fear, but anticipation. What revelations awaited him? As the words spilled across the page, one phrase caught his attention: "I never wanted to hurt you." The admission felt like a punch to the gut. Painful memories of distrust wrapped tightly around his heart. He read on, the tone shifting between regret and rationale. The writer explained their choices as survival, as necessity, yet he couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. The vulnerability of honest behaviors loomed large in stark contrast to the calculated decisions that had defined his life thus far. By the time he finished, Jack felt a whirlwind of emotions: the anger at a past he hadn't chosen, the sympathy for a life deeply etched in hardship, but most of all, a fierce protectiveness for the girls he now held dear. He grappled with the conflicting feelings, each layer of complexity reflecting both his emerging identity as a father and the responsibilities that came with it. He closed his eyes, attempting to absorb the gravity of the situation. The chaotic laughter of the twins echoed in his mind, a soothing reminder of what he had to protect. He envisioned their smiling faces and felt the urgency settle into his bones. The letter had reignited a determination buried beneath his professional persona, forcing him to confront not just the external circumstances, but also his internal conflicts. How could he safeguard his daughters' hearts when his own was in disarray? With a renewed sense of purpose, Jack made a decision. He would search for the author of the letter not in anger, but out of a need for understanding. He wanted to know the reasons behind the choices that had created their fractured family. The thought terrified him, an overwhelming sense of stepping into the unknown where pain could reignite. Yet the prospect further fueled his motivation to comprehend a past unfamiliar with him, one that intertwined with his daughters' lives. The next day, Jack immersed himself in his dual role, a tech mogul executing strategic moves while simultaneously embracing the vulnerabilities of fatherhood. He performed his duties with renewed vigor, meeting clients and partners with a confidence that would define his career. Yet his thoughts remained attached to the letter and the impending confrontation it promised. He scoured the internet for clues about the author, using every resource available at his disposal, modern technology feeling both a blessing and a curse. Finding her, however, was not just a matter of research, it required delving into parts of a life he preferred to avoid. As the hours melted into days, Jack's pursuit intensified. Every piece of information fell like dominoes, further fueling a determination he hadn't realized still existed within him. By the week's end, Jack had narrowed down his search to a name that made his heart race, a small town that had once outlined the existence he was now trying to disentangle. He understood that this journey was no longer about revenge or even the need for closure, it was about restoring balance for his daughters and giving them an understanding of where they came from. He glanced at the twins playing in the yard, their laughter now underscored with a seriousness he had never known. As sunlight spilled across their faces, he realized that this mission surpassed self-discovery, it was also about setting an example. How would they navigate relationships, trust, and the concept of family when he himself had been running for so long? With a deep breath, Jack prepared to step into a new chapter of their lives, a confrontation not just with the ghosts of the past, but a coming to terms of his own shortcomings. The clarity found in purpose ignited a flame within him, he was ready. The time for confrontation was drawing near. And so the letter had set him on a path of discovery, paving the way for the inevitable. He would soon have to face the person who had once chosen to abandon, but now he would reclaim what was rightfully his. What victory or heartache awaited him as he ventured into this deeper truth? The drive to the town was filled with an unsettling mix of trepidation and resolution. Jack's hands gripped the steering wheel, each mile marker pulsing against his conscience. Thoughts spiraled through his mind like the asphalt unfurling beneath him. Was he prepared for what lay ahead? The questions tallied like a ledger. Would she acknowledge him? Did she regret leaving? And, most importantly, how would it feel to confront the architect of his pain, the person whose choices had rippled through his life to alter its trajectory irrevocably? Pulling into the quaint little town, he was struck by its unyielding nostalgia. The shops looked like they were crafted from old storybooks, each storefront inviting yet concealing its own secrets. It was a stark contrast to the high-tech expanse of his life, where emotions were often drowned beneath screens and numbers. Jack paused to take in the surroundings, the bench at the edge of a park, the bakery with its tantalizing smells wafting through the air, the curious glances of locals who seemed to sense his anxiety. He had studied her social media presence before leaving. He knew where she worked, her favorite coffee spot, and even the name of her favorite dog. Yet that knowledge felt flimsy compared to the depth of experience he was about to confront. He parked, took a deep breath, and stepped out into the sun, letting it wash over him for a brief moment. As he walked through the town square, Jack felt the cool breeze prickling his skin. It was more than just the chill of the autumn air, it was the weight of impending confrontation. He found himself weighing the odds, the possibility of finding closure against the risk of exposing himself to old wounds. After navigating the cobblestone streets, he stood outside the coffee shop, the lettering faded and peeling, evoking a sense of warmth. Inside, the aroma of roasted beans enveloped him, stirring something long asleep within his core. He spotted her immediately engaged in conversation with a customer, her hair falling in waves that framed her face. She looked comfortable, at peace in the way that spoke of a life unburdened by past decisions. The shadows of recognition flitted across her features as she caught his gaze. His heart raced, pounding against his ribcage, a reminder of the urgency propelling him forward. Taking a seat at a table just out of earshot, he clutched the edge, contemplating his approach. Memories of their shared past battled for supremacy within him, forcing him to wrestle with anger, confusion, and a desperate plea for understanding. She brewed a cup, unwittingly prolonging the moment, and Jack fought against the urge to retreat. This was more than a meeting, it was the beginning of a dialogue that could ripple through the foundations of his family, a moment of reckoning that might redefine everything. As she finally approached him, her expression morphed from surprise to guarded curiosity. Jack recognized the hesitation mirrored in her eyes, a mixture of shock and recognition. Jack, she breathed, and the way she uttered his name was both a balm and a blade, slicing through the veneer of normalcy they had both maintained for years. "Can we talk?" Jack managed, the weight of his decisions anchoring him to the ground. He knew that beyond this moment lay a truth he could scarcely fathom, a truth that might open wounds or offer salve, a revelation that could alter their fates intertwined with those of his daughters. The moment hung heavily between them. Outside, the autumn leaves danced in a breeze that hinted at change. What revelations would unfold as they began to exchange words, and how might they challenge Jack's understanding of himself and the world he had built for his daughters? The moment of truth had finally arrived, and with it, an inevitable confrontation of his past. Jack felt the gravity of the moment tugging at him, each instant stretching endlessly. Her eyes searched his, a labyrinth of emotions playing out behind them. He couldn't escape the clutches of time, the years that had accumulated like dust bunnies under a neglected couch. Every question, the ones he had rehearsed, anticipated, feared, whirled dangerously in his mind. "Why now?" she asked, her voice betraying the slightest tremor. Jack opened his mouth, words swirling like the steam rising from the coffee cup she held. He fought against the instinct to shield himself, to hide inside the walls he had constructed to keep vulnerability at bay. I needed to understand," he finally said, his voice steadying as he leaned forward, the table separating them, a personal divide that he longed to break. "There's so much I still don't know. About us. About you and me." She remained silent, her gaze drifting to the table, and the weight of her hesitation crushed down on him. It was a stark reminder that the conversations they once shared had been overshadowed by a silence that echoed for too long, leaving an ache in both their hearts. "Understanding," she echoed softly, bringing him back to the warmth of the present. "You think that's what it takes? Understanding to erase the past?" The question hit him like a punch. Jack paused, reflecting on the undeniable truth buried within those words. Did he really believe mere conversations could untangle the complicated web of hurt? "No, I don't expect it to erase anything," he admitted, internalizing the struggle within himself. "But I owe it to the life I've built, and to my daughters, to understand how all of this affects them." The mention of his daughters seemed to shift something within her. The spark of recognition in her eyes flared momentarily, revealing the flicker of the person he had once known. "You have daughters now?" she asked. "They're the light in my life," Jack replied, feeling a surge of love and commitment. "But they are also fragile. I can't let this, whatever it is, fester between us any longer. If we're going to mend, it has to be now." Her expression softened, and for a fleeting moment, he saw the woman he once loved, a woman who deserved the truth he could finally offer. "What do you want from me, Jack?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jack inhaled deeply, focusing on the walls he had built around his heart over the years. "I want to know why you left." "I want no," she interrupted, a sense of urgency gathering in her demeanor. "You want answers, but you also want closure. What would that even look like for you? Do you want me back in your life? Your daughter's lives? Was it all just for understanding?" The confrontation jolted him, her words were sharp, a cold splash of water on his warm intentions. Jack could feel the intensity of their exchange ratchet a notch higher. "I don't know," he admitted, his vulnerability unraveling the cautious fortifications he'd methodically constructed over the years. "I just thought, maybe we could start from here." His honesty crackled in the air between them, a stark contrast to the fleeting moments he had spent pretending to have everything figured out. It was an exposure he had avoided for too long, awkwardly blending fear and hope as he listened to his own pulse hammering in his ears. As she opened her mouth to respond, the air crackled with tension, thick enough to cut. Just then, the coffee shop door swung open, and the arrival of a familiar face sent a jolt through Jack. A young girl entered, no more than 8 years old, her laughter lighting up the room. And something in her eyes, those were his daughter's eyes. "Dad?" the girl called out, confusion laced in her tone. Time stood still, Jack's heart plummeting into an abyss of uncertainty. He looked from the girl to her mother, feeling the earth shift under his feet. What did this mean for all of them? How was he going to navigate the storm brewing not just in his heart but also in the lives of his daughters? As a profound realization washed over him, Jack knew the confrontation had only just begun, and he might have unwittingly unleashed a maelstrom that could reshape everything he thought he understood about family and redemption. Jack's mind raced, fragments of thoughts colliding like bumper cars. He had imagined a future laden with reconciliation and understanding, but this? This felt like an echo of a life he had left behind, now resurrected in a blur of innocence and confusion. Dad? The girl's face, round and animated, was a mirror of his own, yet she seemed a stranger, a child he had never known, yet who was embedded with pieces of his past. His heart tightened. A curious collection of emotions swirled within him, joy, dread, vulnerability, and an intense desire to connect even amidst the chaos. Who is this? Her mother asked, her voice suddenly sharp, cutting through the moment as she turned her attention from Jack to the girl. Becca? Jack's voice trembled, betraying the whirlwind in his chest. How could this be happening? The past was meant to stay buried, hidden like old letters destined to collect dust. Yet here it was, standing before him in the form of a girl with bright eyes that mirrored countless memories he thought were behind him. Wait, you know her? The sharpness in her mother's voice drew Jack back to reality. The world around him faded, leaving behind just these three tangled lives, frozen in an awkward triangle of confusion and stung emotions. I didn't know I'd have a daughter. The admission felt heavier than expected, as if he were laying down the burden of years filled with silence. I thought it was just me and the girls now. Jack inhaled and steadied himself. This was not the time to flinch from the truth. Who is she? The unspoken question hung, a fragile thread ready to snap under the weight of truth. He glimpsed the remnants of the woman he once loved sifting through her own emotions, a blend of fear and conflicting loyalty. Her name is Becca, she finally spoke, her expression a mixture of love and apprehension. She's our daughter, Jack. I thought you had moved on. I thought I was protecting her from the past. Protecting her? Or protecting yourself? The words slipped out, each one a jagged edge. Don't. She snapped, her voice a sharp contrast to the softness that normally defined their conversations. You don't get to act like you understand the choices I made. Jack felt a swell of anger mix with sorrow, another variable in a complex equation he was desperate to solve. But I was there. We had plans. You left and took everything, including our future. The laughter of the child, joyful and naive, broke the tension momentarily. Becca shifted her weight from foot to foot, eyes darting between her parents, picking up snippets of emotions that felt foreign to her. Can we go get ice cream? Please? She chirped, blissfully unaware of the emotional maelstrom taking place. Jack's heart sank, a visceral reminder of the innocence children carried, an innocence so easily contaminated by the complex lives of adults. We need to talk, Becca. You don't know what's been going on, Jack said, his resolve starting to waver as he felt the deep need to protect her from the unraveling chaos. Her mother stepped closer, her determination hardening. She deserves to hear the truth, Jack. All of it. The stakes had never been clearer. Jack was standing on a precipice, the questions emerging like waves crashing against a rock. Was he ready for this confrontation? Would understanding really allow them to heal, or was he merely walking towards a red tide of regret? As he glanced at the little girl, still full of unfettered excitement and hope, he realized this was no ordinary afternoon. It was a pivotal moment where everything fell into place or shattered irreparably. Then let us do it, Jack said, finding the words through grit and determination. Let us lay it all out, no more hiding. Not from her, not from ourselves. And as Becca danced with anticipation, oblivious to the storm of feelings surrounding her, Jack felt the weight of the world settle onto his shoulders, no longer just a husband or estranged partner, but the father he needed to become. A step closer to understanding was a step closer to redeeming everything lost, yet every revelation could tilt the balance toward devastation. As he prepared for that critical engagement, an unsettling dread pricked at the edges of his thoughts. What new truths would emerge? And, more importantly, could he handle the fallout? Jack's fingers fidgeted with the hem of his shirt, the fabric rough against his skin. The weight of Becca's innocent invitation for ice cream hung heavier than expected, more like a lead weight than a simple request. He had spent years attempting to build a life molded from resilience and regret. Now that life was upended, revealing not just old wounds but introducing new ties, fragile ties, pulsing with the need for connection yet fraught with challenge. He glanced at Becca, who bounced impatiently on the balls of her feet, unaware of the implications surrounding her existence. The very essence of her being seemed to radiate hope, causing a sharp crack in his wall of fear. What if he couldn't answer her unasked questions? What if he failed her before he even had a chance to be her father? The silence stretched until it became excruciating. "We should talk," he said, turning to her mother, who tilted her chin defiantly, her eyes narrowed. "About how we move forward, for her sake." "Jack," she started, her voice low but firm. "Don't kid yourself. This isn't just about moving forward. There's a lot we need to untangle together." Her words tugged at his heart, each syllable both a lifeline and a noose. Jack stepped back, feeling the internal conflict slump his shoulders. For too long, he had existed in a state of suspended animation, a ship adrift in a sea of mistakes and missed opportunities. Now, with Becca at the heart of a storm he had never anticipated, he was indicative of that very chaos. "I want to be in her life," Jack declared, forcing solidity into his voice. It wasn't just about sentiments, it had to become actionable. "Whatever it takes, I want to know my daughter." Each word tripped over the emotional barrier he had built, but they felt right. A clarity that had been absent for years cut through his anxiety, finally giving him direction. Her mother's expression softened, if only slightly. "It won't be easy," she warned, yet there was a shift, an acknowledgement of his commitment to Becca. "What could be easy about this?" Jack rebutted, an edge of defensiveness creeping in. "You once told me that love doesn't come easy. You'd think we know that by now." A flicker of nostalgia passed through her gaze, and the weight of it threatened to submerge him again. She opened her mouth, perhaps to protest or offer a rebuttal, but then hesitated, looking briefly at Becca, who was now engrossed in the petals of a nearby flower. "I need time," she finally said, her voice quieter than before yet colored with resolve. "Fine," Jack replied, trying to keep his own emotions in check. "I'll give you time. But I won't let her bounce between our pasts any longer than necessary." The air thickened, charged with unspoken understanding. Jack glanced at Becca once more, determination welling up from the pit of his stomach. He had a plan brewing, one that could redefine not just who he was but who Becca could become in his life. As they stood there, he mentally plotted out the steps he'd need to take, building trust, fostering a relationship, and manifesting a bond as sturdy as he could manage despite the tempest of their shared history. He needed to be pragmatic about it. His own emotional recovery would hinge upon taking tangible steps forward to create a stable environment for Becca. Still, a hidden fear wormed its way into his psyche. What if his efforts were insufficient? What if his past loomed too large to overcome? Time would tell, but one thing was certain: he would challenge whatever barriers arose. Jack could no longer afford to be a passive player, the stakes were too high. "Can we still get ice cream?" Becca's hopeful inquiry cut through the tension, a much-needed breath of fresh air that echoed her innocence. Jack turned to her, a small smile breaking through the clouds of his thoughts. "Yeah," he replied. "Let us celebrate." But in that celebratory moment, his mind swirled with uncertainty and undercurrent of doubt. Would this be a mere distraction from the unavoidable storm that lay ahead? What truths were still waiting to emerge, threatening to disrupt the fragile balance he was trying to establish? As Becca skipped ahead, bright-eyed and full of hope, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were merely moments away from a revelation that could change everything. That driving sense of urgency drummed in his heart. He felt the walls around their past begin to close in. Jack had taken the first step toward becoming the father he yearned to be, but he knew, deep down, that the path to forgiveness and understanding was fraught with dangers he had yet to fully comprehend. Behind each corner could lay adversity, waiting to complicate his already tangled reality. What truths would arise next? And could Jack handle the full weight of his emerging role as a father? Jack watched Becca as she dashed ahead, her laughter ringing out like a joyful bell. Her exuberance cut through the oppressive haze that clung to his thoughts. But beneath the facade of present joy lay a rumble of anxiety. Ice cream may be a short-lived celebration, but the magnitude of what was unfolding was far greater than a simple treat. As they made their way to the ice cream shop, Jack's mind was not solely focused on the flavors. Instead, it spiraled through strategies, ways to bridge the chasm between his past mistakes and the future he envisioned with Becca. Which ingredients of fatherhood would he need to blend to become a stable fixture in her young life? The urgency propelled him forward, gripping him like a storm about to break. Despite the thrumming pulse of determination, doubt nudged at him. What techniques could he employ to prove his intentions were genuine? There was no guidebook for a situation like this. Jack had spent years dodging the consequences of his actions, cloaking his vulnerability behind hardened walls. Now, those very walls felt like shackles, preventing him from really connecting with Becca. Their order was simple, but he chose flavors with care. Mint chocolate chip, her choice, paired with cookie dough, his nostalgia wrapped in a sugary embrace. As they settled at a sunlit table, he leaned in, initiating a conversation designed to peel back the layers of their lives. Every question he posed was a deliberate step, aimed at forging a bridge rather than allowing division. "How has school been?" he ventured, keeping his tone light while measuring her reactions. "It's okay," she replied, her attention flicking between her ice cream and the people passing by. "I like art class the most." Art. A realm filled with creativity, unrestrained and raw. An unexpected parallel to where he found himself a father drawing lines in the unknown. "What do you like to create?" Jack probed, captivated by the glimpse of discovery in her eyes. "I like to paint," Becca said, her mouth full of ice cream, expression bordering on pride. "I even made a big, messy canvas project." Ms. Daniels said it was very unique. Her joy bore weight, each nuance reshaping Jack's perspective on parental duties. He imagined encouraging her creativity, guiding her through exploration rather than dictating limits. Yet the deeper he sank into this thought, the more he sensed an urgent call to establish a solid foundation to nurture her ambitions. A hint of concern flitted across Becca's brow, as if she could tap into the undercurrent of his thoughts. "Are you going to be around more? Like for school things?" Her words struck like a hammer against the fragile edifice he had just started to build. Did he even know how to participate fully in her life? The gnawing insecurity returned, challenging his resolve. "I want to be there," he assured her, matching her gaze with sincerity. "I want to attend everything: school events, art shows, all of it." The glimmer of happiness returned to Becca's face, but Jack couldn't ignore the stab of uncertainty within himself. Words were mere malleable forms unless paired with actions that followed. Yet in that moment, the resolve to actively engage bloomed once more. He could think of ways to be present, perhaps volunteering in the art room, becoming a constant, reassuring influence. They left the table to explore the park nearby, and with every step, Jack pondered his next move. He couldn't just stand by and let his responsibility evaporate into idle promises. Plans began to swirl in his mind, practical steps towards solidifying his role in Becca's life. Emboldened, he recalled his own childhood and the moments he wished for an adult presence that could guide him. Maybe he wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel, but rather build on the framework established by those who had contributed positively to his own life. Just then, as they wandered towards the swings, a piercing laugh carried through the air. It didn't belong to Becca, but rather to a young girl closely resembling her, causing Jack's heart to race. Could it be? The realization struck him, a disturbing notion that he might not be fully aware of the implications of being a father, not just to Becca, but potentially others. The air thickened as he approached the laughter, nerves igniting a spark of dread and curiosity. Jack steadied himself. Could this unexpected encounter upend everything he had begun to build, or perhaps it was the catalyst for deeper understanding? Who is that girl? He wondered, suddenly desperate to comprehend the connections that might be lying just beneath the surface. A few strides brought Jack closer to the source of the laughter, each step echoing the turmoil brewing within him. As he rounded a cluster of trees, the girl came into view, her golden curls bouncing in rhythm with her carefree jumps. She was accompanied by her mother, a striking figure who radiated warmth despite the hint of familiarity that flickered in Jack's mind. Was there truly a connection, or was his mind simply conjuring ghosts from his past? "Jack." Becca's small voice broke through his haze, tilting her head curiously at his sudden stillness. Steeling himself, he turned back to Becca, hoping the anxiety didn't mar his expression. "Just taking in the view," he replied, forcing a smile. But every muscle in him strained toward the pair, particularly the girl whose features mirrored Becca's so closely. "Can we go closer?" Becca tugged at his sleeve, her eagerness palpable and the air thick with uncertainty. Jack hesitated. This was more than just an awkward situation. It felt layered, intricate, like a riddle waiting to be solved. "Maybe after we finish playing?" He watched Becca's small face crumple slightly, but he couldn't afford to lose focus on the deeper implications of this development. As they approached the swings, Jack mentally paced the perimeter of what he was beginning to realize about himself, a web of secrets and obligations he had yet to untangle. "Look, I can swing higher than you," Becca shouted, but Jack's thoughts drifted, attuned to the implications of that girl's laughter. The feeling of being unmoored intensified as memories from nights spent wrestling with his past sent jolts of doubt through him. What if this stranger's child was yet another flicker of deceit in his life? Another obstacle to overcome en route to authentic fatherhood. "Jack!" Becca called again, this time clearly annoyed. "You're not swinging." The swing set creaked as he rose to action, forcing a laugh as he settled onto a swing next to Becca. Still, his heart drummed in his chest. He watched the girl, now sliding down the slide, her laughter blending seamlessly with Becca's. Moments passed, yet every second was fraught with what-ifs. Should he approach her mother, initiate a conversation that could pull the threads of their lives together? Casual inquiries turned to flaring fears, igniting a primal urge to retreat. He remembered the emotions that flooded through him with every poor choice he made, how time and again he wished he could erase the past. But as Becca pushed off her swing, adrenaline glimmering in her eyes, he made a decision. "This is not just about my past," he chided himself internally. "It's about both our futures." "Becca," he called, his heart racing as he resolved to confront whatever reality lay before him. "Let us go meet her." "The girl, I mean." Her eyes sparkled with excitement, and she nodded, stepping down from the swing. Jack felt the world tilt beneath him, a rush of uncertainty coiling in his gut. There was no going back. He had to face whatever truths sprouted from this potential confusion. As they approached, the reality crystallized. He knew he was stepping deeper into an uncharted territory with high stakes. When they reached the girl, he found himself at a critical junction. Why did this feel so paramount? "Hi there," he said, forcing warmth into his voice, battling the storm brewing within. The girl glanced at him, curious yet unbothered as she continued to play. "Do you want to join us?" The answer hung in the air as he looked at Becca, who was grinning, her excitement sparking against the backdrop of an impending revelation that could reshape everything. Distraught, Jack realized one undeniable truth: the weight of his past was about to collide with the hope for a future, and he was wholly unprepared for what it could reveal. What if? He began to question, but the girl's mother turned, her expression shifting as if she recognized something in his eyes. "Jack," she said, the name a weight and an invitation all at once. In that moment, it all crystallized and morphed into something pivotal. The truth about fatherhood loomed before him, larger than anything he had anticipated. The questions he had been avoiding echoed in his mind now louder than ever. Could this unexpected twist be the catalyst for his redemption, or had he wandered into a complexity that would ensnare him yet again? And in that suspended moment under the sun, he was desperate to discover if he could break free from the shackles of his past and how much he was truly willing to confront. Jack stood at the precipice of an emotional whirlwind, watching as the girl leaped excitedly from the swing and ran toward Becca, their laughter blending harmoniously. He felt as if he were looking into a fractured mirror: his daughter, Becca, and this other girl who bore the same effervescent spark of life. This collision of the past and present ignited something deep within him, a blend of fear and recognition that unveiled the gravity of his new reality. The girl's mother approached him, her expression a mixture of surprise and recognition, pulling him back to the precipice of his past, the very situation he had been racing to reconcile. "Jack?" she asked cautiously, probing the very nerve he had just begun to address. "Yes, it's me," he replied, steel threading through his voice as he stepped forward. We need to talk. The air thickened as he faced the both of them, the veil of uncertainty lifting just enough for clarity's light to shine through. Jack sensed he stood on the cusp of a monumental turning point, where he could either retreat into the shadows of his past or embrace the opportunity to shape the future for his daughters. Becca bounced forward, introducing herself with an eager smile. I'm Becca. Who are you? Faced with a moment he couldn't script, Jack absorbed the warmth radiating from her innocence. I'm your dad, he said, allowing the significance of that title to wash over him. And this is a new friend of yours. The mother looked intently at Jack, her demeanor shifting toward guarded anticipation. This is Sophie, she gestured to her daughter, who waved shyly yet openly, two worlds intertwining amidst swirling uncertainties. Jack felt the weight of transparency press down on him, urging the truth to emerge from the shadows. Sophie, he began carefully, the name igniting both anxiety and hope within him. I didn't know you existed. I didn't know you were my dad until just now, Sophie replied, her words innocently unlayering the complexities of this moment. Jack was struck by how easily childhood drama wrapped around visceral truths. He could both love and protect these girls, but infantile details would amplify the complexity of their shared lives. As Becca engaged Sophie in playful banter, Jack's gaze met her mother's. Her eyes spoke volumes, a silent acknowledgement of shared burdens born from choices made in the past. Jack cleared his mind of distractions. This mutely begged acknowledgement had to transition into actionable resolution. Can we speak privately for a moment? Jack asked, his voice steady, masking the barrage of emotions swirling within. The mother looked down, gauging the weight of his request. Okay, she replied, though the tension in her voice hinted at unspoken baggage carried long and far. They found a secluded spot beneath a sprawling tree, its branches casting intricate shadows on the ground, sheltering them from the bustling chaos of children at play. Jack could hear laughter, both innocent and carefree, while he trudged through the spatters of pain and nostalgia swirling around them. I never intended for things to end this way, he began, careful with each word, imbued with the purpose of earnestness. I wanted to know, to be there for Sophie. All this time I thought it was just about me, but now I see how this impacts everyone. You think it's that simple? She replied, her voice taut. You left, Jack. You walked away. I thought I was protecting my own ambition. I was a fool, he admitted, the honesty cutting through each wall he had built around himself, revealing the core of his vulnerabilities. Now you're ready to be a father? She asked skeptically, pinning him down with the weight of her scrutiny. Do you realize the ramifications of this? Where was this commitment when everything fell apart? Truth is, I lost my way. He confessed, each word echoing the battle between his past decisions and his current fervor for redemption. What's done is done. I can't undo my mistakes. But I can still step into their lives and be the father I wasn't ready to be. Her eyes softened, caught between the fragments of their shared history and the palpable hope of a new future. It's not just about you learning to parent. It's about Sophie, and the life she deserves, too. With every word spoken, Jack felt the layers of regret peel back, exposing a transformative yearning to rebuild a family, one with coherence and connection. Then let us find a way to navigate this, he proposed earnestly. Co-parenting, understanding our children's needs, let me show you that I can be more than my past. This can't happen overnight, she cautioned, yet the tension in her shoulders eased, revealing the possibility of a path they could share. I'm aware. I'm committed to the long game, he voiced brightly, looking directly into her eyes for the first time, allowing the truth of his journey to resonate between them. In that moment, Jack felt an awakening tinged with clarity wash through him. Transformations only begin with intention. The desire to move forward had surfaced, entwined with profound realizations unfurling bleak pasts into hopeful futures. Returning to Becca and Sophie, he watched the two engage deeply within the innocence of childhood. Encapsulated in this shared experience, he knew he had to be the anchor amidst the waves crashing against the shoreline of their lives. Hey, girls! Jack called out, instilling energy absent moments before. What are you two up to? Can we paint together again? Becca exclaimed, her earlier doubts fading with each enthusiasm-filled sentence. Jack nodded eagerly, excitement welling up within him. Absolutely. What do you want to create? Their laughter welcomed him into a newfound reality. In recognizing his daughter's intricate needs, he embraced the duality of love and estrangement, determined to weave together a narrative of healing. Jack had come a long way from the cold, corporate exchanges that once defined him. The emotions of the past transformed into stepping stones on which he could now build a future. He was recognized not merely for the success that encased his identity, but for striving to understand the dichotomy between who he had been and who he could become. His shoulders, once pinned down by the mantle of missed opportunities, began to breathe again a newfound resolve to be a father that no letter or mischance could ever undo or drown. With the sun setting over a vast horizon beckoning possibility, Jack embraced the journey ahead, welcoming the emergence of a family reborn through courage, love, and understanding. It was only the beginning. Feel the inspiration fuel your own journeys. If this story resonated with you, subscribe immediately to our channel so you won't miss our next emotional journey. Don't wait even one more second to leave a like, as it helps us reach more souls needing uplifting stories. Comment below your reactions and theories about Jack's journey. Did he make the right choices? And share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need motivation to overcome in their own lives. You need to support our community by engaging with this content. After all, it's the true fans of personal transformation who understand the importance of these actions.